I'm Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm glad to have you here. Now, at The Power of Money, we are interested in three things happening. First, we want you to get the necessary education so that you and your family can make the decisions that will impact positively on you in your financial life. The second thing is that you be empowered to prosper. I only want the best for you. And you can only get that if you have education and then the drive to make it happen. And the third thing that is so important to me is that you recognize that life is more than a journey and that you be energized so that you can begin to participate in the truly joyous experience of living. So, here's to empowerment, here's to education, and here's to energy. I'm Michelle Graves, your host, Power of Money, and here we go. And here we go. It's a pleasure and an honor and a delight to be with you today. And I chose to wear white. Why? Because I like it. And that is consistent with what we're going to be talking about on today's segment of The Power of Money with Michelle Graves. I'm going to be talking on the subject matter of resetting your life. Resetting your life. Yeah. When you press the button and then you go into a rewind mode. But not the same stuff, but a fresh rewind, which is looking at your life from a totally panoramic perspective and concluding, having seen the sum total of your life, where am I really? Now, this is an unusual show because actually I was prepared to talk about something else. But the thing that kind of gnawed at me, and I said, well, if it's gnawed at me, I better go on and talk about it, which is when you reach a point in your life where you realize that it's just so absolutely the same. And of course, as human beings, sameness is dullness. We like to be adventurous. We like to do things. You should. If you're not, you should. You should crave to do things that are exciting and interesting and help your mental growth, okay? And many of us, myself included, okay, can get in a place where we are stuck. And when I say stuck, we don't know where we need to go next. Particularly those of you that have met your goals early. I did. I accomplished a lot of things very early in my adult life. And the rest became just repetition or rote, more the same. And I reached a place where I am now, where I'm like, you know what? I just don't want to do that anymore. I want to experience a different kind of a experience. Even down to something as basic as relationships and friendships. Really important. Many times you have outgrown those friendships. You don't want to admit it, and I speak directly to women especially, because we hold on to that, well, you know, we were in the day. But that was then. It's kind of like watching a James Brown old school song, I Got the Feeling, you know, and it's when that song was out, that was one rocking song. But when you listen to it today, it doesn't have the same cadence or impact or things changed. What changed? Not the music. What changed was you. You don't have that feeling anymore that was attached to that song. And so I bring this to the table because for many of us, this entire pandemic has been a wake-up call to look at your life, look at it objectively, and then make some decisions about resetting, meaning you just wind the little timer back and tick, 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 watch it go forward and see what happens. Let me share with you, openly and objectively, what many of you, and myself included, may have been experiencing over this past year with the pandemic. One of the first things we learned is that life is truly a vapor. There are no guarantees from day to day. Period. There are no guarantees. You can be fine today and gone tomorrow. Now, we've always known that, but it never looked us in the face in the manner that it's looking us in the face now. People that you befriended, that you knew, that you loved, gone. Went in the hospital, never came out, gone. Couldn't say goodbyes, gone. Done, finished, kaput, next. Whew. Painful. And probably a lot of the pain had to deal with the finality of a person's life. No matter how they lived it, it was signed, sealed, and shut. Nothing more to say, over with, next. And we looked at that and we became terrified. Why? Because somehow we didn't think that's the way it's supposed to happen. We just didn't. We didn't think it was supposed to happen like that. We did not think that a person could get sick and just gone. No preparation, no anything. And then we began to look in the mirror at ourselves, and we began to understand that life is not permanent and that it's a vapor. We're like grains of sand. And so what really is important when you're going through this dissection, as I call it, the separating of all the moving parts, and looking at yourself first, if you have the courage, because a lot of people can't look at themselves with any courage. It's completely frightening. But I don't want you to be frightened. I want you to be aware. I want you to wake up and recognize that life is transitional and that it is not permanent. And therefore, where should we focus our time, resources, and energy? And this is a big one, particularly if you're a male listening, because many males, men in our culture, have been programmed to focus on, I gotta get it, I gotta get it, I gotta get it, I gotta make this money, I gotta do this thing, and lo and behold, you're dead. Never related to family, never got involved with other people, transitory relationship with your wife or your girlfriends or whomever, excuse me please, whomever you had in your space, but the quality of your life not been good. The money underperformed. Yeah, it did. It underperformed. You didn't get what you thought you were going to get for what you paid for. Now, why is that important? It's important because at some point, I'm sure you thought, maybe I could do this a little different. Or maybe I could not do this at all. Or maybe I just want to just blow myself up in a balloon and just fly away. Okay? Does that sound like somebody you know? It may be you. It certainly was me, because at a certain point, not too long ago, I really began to question the quality of my life and the fact that I was not intentional about my life. Meaning I know how to make money. I know the mechanics of this and that. I know the outcome. I can guarantee you that if I make a recommendation regarding your retirement and you don't apply it, outcomes will not be favorable. That's training, that's repetition. But, and I say this, but what about a scenario where you retire on an island or in another country or in another place where you don't know people and where you have to start over from scratch and where you have to use your skills that you've culled over the years to be able to manage? Or even more powerfully, if you have acquired a little bit of life experience known as wisdom, you can now use that wisdom to carve out a magnificent, incredible life in your older years. Now, I hear all the time, I mean, from my children, girl, I cannot believe you are this age. As my kids say, you're old. I'm like, I'm old. I'm wise. That's what I tell them. You would want what I got. But what is the purpose of wisdom if you cannot apply it in a meaningful way in your own circumstances? Okay? Because the children will grow up and they will leave. That's a fact. Your parents will grow older. They will ultimately become sick and then they will leave. And you will be here for an appointed time and then you will leave. So, what about this equation makes sense? What makes sense and what can be controlled is you and the life you live and how you experience life and what your expression is in life. Okay? And please, this is a very difficult show for me because I'm having to expose vulnerabilities about this whole thing. But I must tell you that in the course of my long life, I have learned the value of parents. Now let me be clear, not all parents should have been parents. But as I tell people all the time, I'm not sovereign God. And I did not make a determination that you came through these people. I didn't do that. But He did. And therefore, if you were born into good parents, consider it a blessing, very rare. If you were born into crazy parents, more typical, still a blessing because you're here and you have free will and the ability to carve a life that can be great. You don't have control over your community, where you were born, your neighbors. If you're religious, your church affiliate. All these things are outside of your control, and it shapes and molds our filtering about life and people. This is why this generation we're dealing with now, this millennial, the do your own thing, anything goes, hey, 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 that group was raised with a black president. Do you all understand that? This generation, these young people already know what a black president looks like, find it perfectly acceptable, and are quite prepared for a female president because, hey, it's okay. We're still here. They don't bring the clutter and the filtering that we had to deal with, which is if you're black, get back. If you're white, it's all right. If you're gay, what is gay? Oh, you're just happy. Terminologies, culture, filters changed. So for many of us, in my age group especially, you will find yourself stuck on a language and a culture and a filtering that is over and outdated. Outdated. And rather than looking at young people as curiosities, look at them as opportunities to see where you can grow as a part of your decision to reset. Do you want to be old school forever? Okay? Because along with the good part of old school, there was a terrible part of old school. Okay? I'm so serious. People didn't talk about stuff. Everything was undercover and hush hush. All kinds of things were going on and nobody would talk about it. Children knew their place, whatever that was. And children were exposed to alcoholism, drugs, adultery. All this was going on because that's what people did and still do. The difference was the filtering and how we processed things. Along comes the internet, and everything is out. Everything globally. You didn't have to travel to a country to befriend people and experience that culture as an outsider looking in. But it expanded your view and it gave you a different perspective, which I might add your grandchildren take as a normal, which is they got all kinds of friends. All kinds of friends. Cross over into all kinds of venues. And this is how they live. And this is how they process life. So the challenge, at least for me, was a recognition that I spoke a different language. Okay? I had not kept up with the times. I had not kept up with how families function and did not understand how they functioned. I didn't understand the rhythm of the races. When Black Lives Matter hit the streets and I saw more white people marching than black people in a couple of film clips, I was puzzled because I couldn't imagine white people, young white people, marching on behalf of the unfairness, blatant, brazen unfairness of the treatment of black people in America. I was stunned. I didn't understand. And I know for a fact that many others didn't understand either, including a whole bunch of white people in my age group, which is, what is going on here? Have I not done everything for you? And the child's response is, you haven't done anything for me because you did not teach me the truth. And so here you stand with a generation that's contemptuous of the work that many white people did for their children. I mean, just don't care, like, goodbye. Again, this is the reset time. What didn't I get right? And whatever I didn't get right, how can I get it right for the path that I want to go? Because the path in America, the path in the world, listeners and viewers, hear me clearly. We're looking at humans now. We're not looking at white people, black people, Baptists, Pentecostals, Catholics. We're not looking at whether a person's heterosexual or homosexual or transgender. We are now at a place in history where people are human. And along with being a human comes a whole long litany of desires and wants and cares, things we didn't even think about. My exposure as a child was in a rural Kentucky town with incredibly backwoods people. Okay? I'm just being open with you. I was a really gifted little girl, little black girl. Where does she fit in? She doesn't fit in. I felt weird all the time because I did not filter things the way that my community did, white and black. And the white people were poor and broke, and the black people were too. Okay? I didn't. So I grew in that environment. That was my foundational environment, which is books and looking at people and processing things and being and feeling very, very different. Okay? My parents are beautiful people, but I was a very different little girl, little black girl. Okay? City life, coming from that perspective, was very different when our family moved. And now I was in a black community because of segregation in the North. So I grew up in that kind of a community where I got to see as a child and observe all kinds of things, the dynamics. I was very blessed to go to good schools and to get a great education. However, my community exposure was still black people. Okay? I went to a prep school in a black neighborhood full of white people. Okay? That's weird. And was told, no big deal. You're there to get your education. You're not there to be a superstar. And that I filtered through, which is living in a segregated community and experiencing white culture as an outsider, and then going on with that background into the adult life. Now, I will tell this to all of you, whether you believe it or not, most of us, white and black, have lived very segregated and separate lives by design. The federal government would not allow veterans coming in from World War II, black veterans, to buy real estate. Okay, they could buy it in poor, quote, black communities, but they couldn't buy real estate like their white counterparts in subdivisions where people were upwardly mobile and doing things. That was not our story. We did not know this as children. We just know that our church was black, our family members were black, our experience was black, and we went to white, in my case, I went to a white school because academically I'd met their criteria, and I went to a white school, very prestigious school, but I was quite black. And at the end of the day, I went back to my home environment, my church environment, my community environment, which was decidedly black people. Okay? Now, this is real. This is real stuff, because if you've grown up as a white person in that same kind of experience where you had all white people, you never dealt with black people except maybe as your house cleaner or as your cook or as the bus driver, you never saw us or interfaced with us in a meaningful way, then you don't know anything about us. And the first thing, the reality is that on your reset button, maybe I need to learn about other people besides my own people. And maybe I need to be exposed to other things so that I'll know what my kids are talking about. Okay? Because certain things today are just not gonna work. But I understand, like I said, I know that because of apartheid in America, okay? Because that's what it is, that we did not have that. And the rare occasions where we did interface were all very controlled and wasn't a whole lot of transparency, okay? Our television exposure was Beaver, Leave It to Beaver, and all that kind of stuff. Bonanza, which I loved. But he had a Chinese man on who was his cook and his cleaner. And they were very successful white men, period. Notably, all of them single, okay? Never hooked up. Should be telling. Power is a single white man, period. So we grew up with that, and so did white people. And so did Asians. I have no idea what the Asian experience is in America. I do know that I lived in Asia, but even over there, I didn't understand a lot that was going on. But I just got along with everybody because, like I said, I'm just a little chocolate girl from Kentucky, and I like everybody, okay? So, back to this reset thing, because I'm trying to explain to you and lay a foundation about the culture that determined the filtering and how we see things and how we process things and why white people feel comfortable saying they have a black, well, I'm good with black people, I'm not racist, I have a black friend. No, you don't. No, you don't. You have a black associate who will show you some parts of them, but mostly not. Why? Because you don't live where they live, you don't experience what they experience, you don't know what they go through on a daily basis, being a color that is disdained in this country. Okay? Type it up, your kids did. I'm telling you, your kids know more about this country's history than you'd ever feel comfortable knowing that they know. Thanks to the ease and the ability that internet has accorded the world in terms of information. So you cannot continue to be in the dark. And I say this on both sides of the fence because people that came over 400 years ago as slaves have spent 400 years observing and watching white people. They know exactly the moves that white people make because they've cooked for them, they've cleaned for them, they've raised their kids, they've done all that. They have been intimately involved in that world. And they know that there are boundaries and limitations, and if you cross them, you will be possibly hanging from a tree. So nobody was playing it like that. But we're in a different time. Things changed with the pandemic. The pandemic accelerated what was already in motion, thanks to internet and social media. Young people were baptized into it, know it, understand it, and are extremely cynical and contemptuous of our generation. Okay? For white people, they feel, I don't even know. I don't even want to talk about it because I'm not white. You need to ask your kids. But I will tell you with black kids, the question that I get all the time is how did you put up with that? How? And I tell them cultural training and the fear of death. The constant fear of death, the constant fear of crossing boundaries, the constant insecurity of not knowing where you were, which was balanced by the comfort of the church and the community and the love and the warmth that was characteristic in our culture that comes from Africa, okay? That was not the European experience. So we got that going on. So why am I telling you today that I'm now at reset? Well, I'm at reset because I cannot change the events that have occurred, and I can only conclude that the events will only worsen in key areas. I will tell you that I do not feel confident and comfortable that this vaccine and pandemic is going to get resolved quickly. So I will protect myself. I will not look at people closely. I will not try to engage because This is a very scary time, all right? I am not confident that we have gotten the best of this thing. I pray we do, because we're losing way too many people, okay? And when a person is gone, I look at a resource that's now gone. Okay, can I come back? We're losing too many young people. That I really don't like, because they have to lead us into this brave new world. That's their charge. They have to do it. And let me tell you, better trained, they're sharp. Even the dumb ones are smart. When you compare it to us, I mean, I actually had to pay one of my young people to teach me how to use the television. And before you say, well, everybody knows how to do that, excuse me, that's interpretive. I did not know what a smart TV was. I've been fine with my rabbit ears. That's right, the money lady had rabbit ears TVs because I very rarely watch television. So I didn't care. But fast forward, I decided I'm going to do this because I enjoy all these documentaries. I enjoy all these shows, and I don't know how to get it on my TV. And they were like, you got an old TV. You got to buy a new TV. You got to do this. Okay, I did all that, and I still didn't know how to. So finally, I just said, can I pay you to set it up? Don't tell me how to use it. Just show me the buttons, and I'm going to write them down. And that's how I'm able to navigate television. Now, I have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old who has his own little chunky computer. And they whiz through this stuff like, what's your password, Mimi? And I'm like, that's my password. They said, well, you know, we can copy it when you're trying to input, or we can help you. They said the magical word, help you. Yeah, anybody know what that feels like? When you have a 7-year-old telling a woman of my age, I can help you. But who cares? They can and they do. Reset. Things have changed. Who would ever thought that drones, things in the sky buzzing around, would drop your items that you purchased? Who would ever think such a thing? It happened to me. I had a book and it was delivered by a drone. And I actually flipped because I was on the porch, and this thing propelled down to me, dropped the book right on the steps, and I started screaming, the world is coming to an end. The world wasn't coming to an end. I got the book I ordered the day before, the next day. Technology is awesome. Also scary. Also, with people in my generation, there's not a comfort level with this stuff. We don't really understand it because we were not raised on that. Our TVs were black and white. We had party line telephones, and the cars we drove were serious steel. They would hurt something. And we went to bed by 9 o'clock. TV went off at midnight. Remember? Right. Johnny Carson, and then it was over. End of story. Next. This was a reality that we experienced that our children have no clue. And they don't want to know. They're like, man, we don't want to do that. But of course I tell them, oh, but just keep living because your children are going to make a mockery of you. Because society will have advanced for them even more. And the things that you cherish, they will look at you like you got 5 heads. So why am I dealing with this subject of reset? Because I know that unless you make a conscious decision, hear me, I'm speaking as one of my baby boomer generation and possibly elder generation. Elderly are people 80 and over. I'm not in that category, but I'm definitely a baby boomer. And we thought we had it going on, and guess what? We don't. We've been passed by. And so we've got to make some harsh decisions about how we want our lives to look. and how we want to participate in this society moving forward. What do we bring in the resetting process? Well, I think that we bring experience. Yeah. Now, mind you, don't get arrogant, don't get ego-centered. Your experience is not all that. It's what you have experienced. And if your experience has been limited, then your filtering is going to be limited. Just know that. So what's the challenge? If your experience has been limited, I will challenge you to get more experience. Join a book club. Join a gardening club. Join a travel club. They've got all kinds of them out here today. You can get involved, AARP. They've got all kinds of stuff out here today to facilitate your growth and expansion that goes deeper than you sitting in front of a television all day. I'm not kidding you. It's deeper than that, and you have to be willing to say, I need to reset and I need to engage. I need to understand this and understand why. Why? And proceed from there. You have to be very careful, and I say this for the benefit of my white brothers and sisters, because your children grew up in homes where you said things that were clearly racist, clearly sexist, where you did things that were not very nice. And your children bear witness, and a lot of their behavior toward you reflects that. A lot of white children grew up with fathers that were demeaning to their mothers. They grew up with dads that were in quest of money and were not invested in their home and the family. And now that he's old, they don't want nothing to do with him. That's why. Now, I just gave you an answer. So what do you have to do to reset? Well, the first thing you're going to have to do to reset is tell them straight up that you were wrong. And that you were not only wrong, but that your behavior was reprehensible. Period. Wrong. Put out the peace stick. And for some, that's going to be really hard. But let me share with you, if you don't make peace with them now, as you grow older and the nursing home looms closer, you're going to be terrified. Because in the depths of your heart, you know there's a strong possibility that they may not care for you at all. And that is horrible, to be old and abandoned. Now let's flip it to the black side, which is the side I'm on. And what are our challenges? Our challenges with our children is going to be to show a much more compassionate and loving nature. Coming out of slavery, we were used to everything being hard, everything being coated with suffering and depression and anxiety. Many of us have had drug experiences and have dealt with things that are very, very, very painful. And therefore, our children have carried that with them. And again, the challenge for many of my people is to loosen up. I didn't say smoke marijuana. Don't get it twisted, okay? You came from the baby boomers. I know you want to get it twisted. You want to be willing to engage your children in real live conversation without a lot of cursing and expletives. You want to be able to talk to them as real people because they're smart. And they can tell you a lot about yourself that you don't know they watched. Oh, the revelation is when they start telling you about the stuff you did that you didn't think they knew. I'll give you a trivial example. I was obsessed with Reese peanut butter cups. I loved Brock's peanut-covered chocolate, chocolate-covered peanuts, Brock specifically. And I loved the little bitty miniature Reese cups. I loved them so much that I hid them in the freezer. Unbeknownst to me, since your children have more eyes than you do, they watched me put them away, hide them, and at the appropriate time, they ate them. I didn't even know they were eating my candy. I found this out as an adult. I found this out not too long ago in talking to them about candy, because I was frustrated with my grandchildren eating candy. And they said, well, Mom, at least you don't hide this. And I'm like, hide what? And they proceeded to tell me, and they thought that was so funny. But it triggered another thing, which is, what else have they seen that they haven't told me? But they talked amongst themselves. These are the conversations you want to have out now. You want to be frank with them by saying, I was probably a terrible parent. Do not pat yourself on the back. Please don't. Don't even put yourself in that situation. Remember, they've seen it all, good, bad, and ugly. And you want to have an open conversation that will lead to creative communication. That's a reset, because generationally, children were not allowed to participate as equals. Now, a child is not an adult. Let's not get off-centered here. There are many things we have no business subjecting our children to today. And look, you talk about pornography. Children did not come up with pornography. Adults did. Children did not come up with sex trafficking. Adults did. So please don't pat yourself on the back about, oh, I did such a good job, because the reality is that all these vices we are dealing with today had their roots in some kind of wacko adult. And our children are suffering and have suffered. So just be straight up with them and be open to the listening, and then be even more open to the self-evaluation and re-evaluation based on new information. Okay, one of my previous guests, Dr. Watson, talked about information. You got information you didn't have before, so you can make decisions that are based upon the new information. You want to be able to have that reset in communication where you can talk to them openly and without a whole bunch of fluff. Be able to talk to them openly and to tell them that you love them. Really tell them you love them and hug them. Okay? Hug them, because in the African American culture, you got hugged maybe at church, but many times in the homes there was no physical expression, because that's not how we were raised. And again, that comes out of slavery. And I don't care what anybody has to say, if you don't understand the history of slavery, chattel slavery, which is sub-animal slavery. We were not, African descent people were not considered humans, and we were below animals. And what did that do to the psyche of an entire race of people in this country? Well, you have but to go to Africa to find out what slavery did to African Americans, because Africans don't act like that, okay? They just don't. So they haven't been filtered like that. So learn the gifting of loving and squeezing and kissing and acting silly and enjoying life. Reset that communication button. Reset the money button. Okay? Reset the money. Did I say it? Reset the money button. And think in terms of leaving a legacy for them and their children. Why am I such a proponent on life insurance? And it's more than the fact that I'm an agent. I've been an agent for over 40 years. If you don't feel you have anything worth passing on, then you won't do life insurance. But I'm submitting to you to reset your thinking about money and recognize that life insurance is a vehicle to create a legacy for your children and grandchildren. You can leave them money, and you should, because it's hard out here. and they need a heads up, and because white people do. Now, I'm not saying all white people, but I'm saying that a significant number of them leave legacy for their children and grandchildren, which enable them to start businesses, buy houses, etc., go to college. And that is called, for African descent people, that's a reset. Stop talking about dying and you don't have things in order. If you're going to give away stuff, do it now. You got too much stuff anyway. Move it on, pass it on. And they may not even want it. That's the shock, which is, I don't know. I don't like those doilies. I don't like all those little miniature things you have all over the house. I don't even like that furniture. Where'd that come from? Different time. You know what I did? I got myself a modern sofa that led out into a bed for my grandkids to spend the night. I did not go and buy another bedroom. I recognized and realized that they don't care. Cover it with a blanket and pillows, and they're there for you. They're not there for a bedroom. You say, well, they can sleep on the floor. Yeah, they can, but don't. The sofa that you've had looking in the living room that looks so nice and is so uncomfortable, get rid of it and get something affordable and new. Spend some money to do that for them and enjoy it yourself. It was amazing for me. I was like, wow, this is great. And they came in and they were so excited about this sofa bed that I hadn't paid much for at all. Not a name brand, I don't care. I mean, come on, I got more years behind me than ahead of me. But they could sit on it, they can jump on it, they can have fun on it, okay? That's a reset for me. And I say that because I am a woman, Henry Dunn, Bassett, Drexel. Come on, really? Who cares? I'm not kidding you. They're going to spray paint it and put some stuff on it and after something else. I'm not kidding you. That's literally where this group is today. So it required me to reset my thinking or my mindset, which is the final thing I'm going to talk about. And then I'm done. Want to hear your comments? You can always call me on my 800 number, 800-734-3915. You can always visit my website, michellegravesonline.com, and leave me notes and thoughts, etc., from what you've heard today about resetting. I've tried to lay a foundation, but the most important thing is your mind. Recognizing that if you're above the earth at this time in history, it's a blessing from God. And it's not to be taken lightly. You need to maximize the time you've been given on this earth. And your legacy should be one of great love, great sharing, great caring, and a financial pot of money that your grandkids and others can say, man alive, she was smoking. That's what you want, or he had it together. You do not want to leave this earth with an obituary that doesn't talk about anything other than your social life and your background and this and that. That is not what's up. Okay? That's not what's no. No. You want to be on top of this. So it does require a readjusting of your mind and eliminating situations, people, circumstances that are what I call bad news folks. Don't bring folks around you with a rainy day. It's raining anyway. You don't need walking people bringing clouds. You don't want that. You want your mindset to be focused spiritually so that you can be grateful every day for the life you've been given and the purpose that's instilled in you to live abundantly. The abundance is not just financially. The abundance is the wealth of information and knowledge that you have that the world needs right now. These are great things. These are things that I'm dealing with right now as Michelle Graves, the money lady, resets her life. And am I excited? Woo! Yes, I am. I'm so excited. And I'm thrilled to be able to share my journey with you. Thank you so much for listening in. I appreciate your support over the years. And I know that if you're smart, and I know you are, you're going to think about the things I talked about. And you're going to conclude that you need to reset too. And whether you understand it or not, we are in a changing world, and it's not going back. Talk to you soon, and God bless you richly. Bye-bye.